They weren't just the greatest. They were opposites, built by pain, driven by obsession. But what you never saw is what it cost them. The boy was 5. His legs were short, his voice barely louder than a whisper. But when the ball touched his feet, the world held its breath. Rosario, Argentina, a small neighborhood where potholes outnumbered promises, where stray dogs ran faster than dreams. In a tight alley, beneath a half-broken lamppost, Lionel Messi danced with the ball like it was part of him. Not an object, not a toy, but a heartbeat. His grandmother would always stand nearby, clapping, cheering, whispering, "One day, they'll all know your name." But there was a problem. He stopped growing. His body refused to cooperate with his talent, his future vanishing with every doctor's visit. A growth hormone deficiency, no money for treatment, no clubs willing to take a risk on a boy too small to survive. Until one did. FC Barcelona, across the Atlantic, on a napkin contract, a promise sealed not with faith, but desperation. Messi left Argentina with a suitcase full of dreams and a body full of injections, tears at night, silence during dinners, loneliness louder than applause. But he kept playing, not to prove the world wrong, but to make his grandmother right. Thousands of miles away, another storm was brewing. Funchal, Madeira, Portugal, an island cut off from mainland success, where men worked long and drank hard, where football wasn't hope, it was escape. The boy was lean, sharp-eyed, sharp-tongued, explosive. Cristiano Ronaldo, a boy who cried when he lost, who punched walls, who ran hills until his legs burned and lungs begged for air. His father worked at the local club, drank to forget the past, ignored the future. But young Ronaldo saw only one way forward: run faster, shoot harder, want more. They mocked his accent when he reached Lisbon. Teammates laughed at his arrogance. Coaches doubted his focus. But Ronaldo never blinked. He trained while others slept. He sprinted while others jogged. He stared into the mirror, not to admire, but to conquer. He promised his mother, "We'll leave this island one day, and I'll be the best player in the world." 2 boys, 2 continents, 1 destiny. They never met, never spoke. But somewhere in the smoke of fate, they were being drawn together. One was quiet genius, the other loud fire. One danced, one roared. Both were haunted by something deeper than football. A need to rise, a need to escape, a need to become more. Before the stadiums, before the fame, before the world turned them into gods. They were just boys chasing shadows on broken streets. The obsession had begun, not with trophies, not with headlines, but with pain. And pain would become the fuel, the edge, the silent thread that would bind them together forever. Barcelona, the city of art, of rebellion, of dreams buried beneath political scars. And inside the gates of La Masia, a revolution was beginning. He was small, quiet, a ghost in the hallways. But on the pitch, he was a storm. Lionel Messi. At 16, he was already confusing defenders twice his age. Not with strength, not with tricks, but with something untouchable. He didn't dribble. He glided. He didn't fake. He predicted. His teammates stopped watching the ball. They watched him. Even seasoned pros whispered his name. This kid is different. But Messi didn't hear it. Or maybe he did and just didn't care. He was still thinking of Rosario, still hearing his grandmother's voice echo before every match, still injecting hormones into his legs, hoping they'd carry the weight of everything he carried inside. Across the water, in a cold city of smoke and glory, Manchester, Old Trafford wasn't just a stadium. It was a furnace. And in 2003, a teenager from Madeira stepped into the flames. Cristiano Ronaldo. He wore earrings, dyed his hair, did stopovers like he was dancing in a storm. English media rolled their eyes. Pundits mocked the flair. But Sir Alex Ferguson saw beyond the flash. He saw the fury, the hunger, the boy who trained longer than everyone, and screamed louder when he missed. Ronaldo didn't just want to win. He wanted to destroy you, to humiliate defenders, to silence crowds, to become a name that would never be forgotten. The Premier League tried to kick him into submission. He got back up. They tried to tame him. He got faster. They laughed. He scored. And then they stopped laughing. In Spain, Messi was growing. Not in size, but in myth. Under Frank Rijkaard. Then Pep Guardiola. Barcelona became his playground, his canvas. The ball obeyed him. The field bent to his will. He didn't run around defenders. He passed through them. As if reality paused and let him go, records fell, goals blurred. But behind the eyes of Messi, still silence. No celebrations louder than a fist pump. No headlines bigger than his next move. Only football. Only purpose. Only play. And in England, Ronaldo was sharpening his sword. He learned the cutback, the perfect free kick, the calculated leap. He built his body like a machine, sculpted for domination, for headlines, for history. Ronaldo wins the Champions League. The Ballon d'Or is the best in the world. But that wasn't enough. Not for him. Not yet. Because somewhere in Spain, there was a boy breaking records without even trying. A boy who didn't care for spotlights, but who owned everyone he stood in. 2009, the moment fate stopped teasing, and finally delivered. Cristiano Ronaldo joined Real Madrid, the most expensive player in history. Number 9. Later, number 7. The Santiago Bernabeu trembled, not because of the money, but because the war had begun. Messi versus Ronaldo, Barca versus Madrid, genius versus machine. But beneath the rivalry was a deeper story. Two kids who should have never made it. One with broken growth plates, one from a broken home. Now, both were on top of the world. But the world wasn't enough. Not yet, not for either. Because now, the climb was over, and the real fight was about to begin. The lights went up, the cameras rolled, and the world stopped breathing. El Clasico wasn't just a football match anymore. It was theater. It was war. It was Messi versus Ronaldo. Every pass, every sprint, every stare. It wasn't just for points on a table. It was for something deeper. Validation, immortality, supremacy. Messi never looked like a warrior. No flexing, no shouting. Just a boy with his head down and magic in his boots. When he touched the ball, the air changed. The crowd leaned in, and defenders froze. Not out of fear, but confusion. They didn't know how to stop what they didn't understand. He didn't run like a normal player. He floated. He didn't dribble past you. He made you disappear. And just when you thought you had him boxed in, he was gone. Lionel Messi wasn't playing football. He was rewriting it. Cristiano Ronaldo, on the other hand, was fire wrapped in muscle. He didn't want to outplay you. He wanted to break you. He would sprint through walls, launch into the sky like gravity didn't apply, score with any part of his body, scream, flex, roar, until the crowd echoed his hunger. He practiced until perfection bent to his will, not just to win, but to prove that pain meant nothing if your purpose was strong enough. When Ronaldo scored, he didn't just celebrate. He declared, "I'm still here. You can't ignore me. I was born for this." The world split in two. Fans took sides, and the debate became religion. Messi fans said, "You can't teach what he does. He's pure, a gift from the gods." Ronaldo fans replied, "But he earned it. He built himself from nothing." No one works harder. Every match became a verdict. Every goal, a headline. Every silence between them louder than words. But what no one saw was how much they pushed each other. Ronaldo trained harder because Messi existed. Messi evolved because Ronaldo refused to stop chasing. They never needed to fight face to face. They were at war, through excellence, through obsession. When Ronaldo scored a hat trick, Messi responded the next night with 4. When Messi broke a record, Ronaldo shattered the next one. In interviews, they were calm, respectful, measured. But inside was a storm. They didn't hate each other. They couldn't, because deep down, they were the only two who truly understood each other. While fans bled online, and pundits picked sides. The two men on the pitch kept writing history. Together, and in the shadows, legends trembled, because every great that came before, Pele, Maradona, Zidane, Cruyff, suddenly felt outdated. This wasn't just a rivalry. It was a new era. 10 years. 10 years of dominance, of shared awards, of endless pressure, of football taking to places it had never been. But the higher they flew, the heavier the crown became. And while the world was obsessed with goals and trophies, no one saw the cracks, the toll, the weight of being more than human. Because behind the highlight reels were bodies breaking, families waiting, and two men carrying not just their teams, but an entire generation's expectations. This was no longer about football. This was about legacy, about who would be remembered and who would be worshipped. But legacy has a price, and both were starting to feel it. They had it all: trophies, records, global worship. But no one saw the silence that followed the rule. Lionel Messi had the world at his feet, but his feet were starting to feel tired. He'd given everything to Barcelona, every drop of magic, every ounce of loyalty. But loyalty in football isn't always returned. The club began to crumble from the inside. Boardroom battles, broken promises, failed transfers. Messi was watching his home fall apart, brick by brick, and yet he stayed, quiet, unshaken. But inside, the cracks began to show. The smiles were fewer, the shoulders slumped deeper. And every time Barcelona lost, it wasn't just a team's failure. It was his. The media blamed him. Not a real leader. Can't carry Argentina. Only works in a system built for him. It didn't matter that he was still scoring, still creating, still delivering impossible moments. What mattered was that the world expected everything, and even gods need to breathe. CristianoRonaldo, on the other hand, had changed kingdoms, from Manchester to Madrid, now to Juventus. A new league, a new language, a new challenge, and yet the same burden. Be the savior, be the top scorer, be the reason, always. But this time, it wasn't that simple. His body, once carved by obsession, began to whisper, then scream. Small injuries, longer recoveries, fewer sprints. But the world didn't care. The world expected 30 goals a season, expected hat-tricks in finals, expected immortality. Even as time pressed harder against his spine, they weren't allowed to decline, not like others, because they weren't just players anymore. They were standards, measuring sticks, gods wearing boots, every touch judged, every miss dissected, every frown photographed. They were expected to smile, even when they were breaking. Messi heard the noise grow louder, especially back home. Argentina, the country that worshipped Diego, and demanded that Lionel do the same. Final after final. Lost, mocked, branded a failure. He doesn't bleed blue and white. He only wins in Spain. So he quit, walked away from the national team. But the guilt didn't leave, because his pain wasn't about medals. It was about meaning, about proving that he belonged. Ronaldo, too, faced a storm. His name filled headlines, but not just on the pitch. Legal battles, accusations, doubt, distraction, and still he played. He scored. He silenced stadiums. But in hotel rooms, behind closed doors, there were questions no trophy could answer. Who am I when the cheers fade? What do I have left when the spotlight moves? They were icons, but they were men with families, with aging bodies, with demons the world would never understand. And yet, they never asked for pity, never spoke of pain, never blamed. They just kept going. Because that's what greatness does, even when it hurts, even when it's unfair, even when the world forgets. That perfection has a price. The rivalry remained on posters, in hashtags, in late-night debates. But between them, there was respect, and perhaps something deeper. Recognition, the quiet understanding that they had built each other, that no one else would ever truly know. what it cost, because beyond the goals, beyond the fame, beyond the noise, was the weight of always being expected to be more. And so they carried it, silently, together, apart. Trophies glistened, cameras flashed, the world sang their names. But beyond the raw stadiums, a different battle raged, one not fought with boots, but with heart, with silence, and with shadows. Lionel Messi, the name had become a brand, a logo, a myth. But the man, he was breaking. Barcelona wasn't home anymore. It was a cage, a burning palace where politics ruled, and loyalty was repaid with betrayal. The board promised new stars. Instead, they sold legends. Xavi gone, Iniesta gone, Neymar gone, and when he finally asked to leave, they said no. His voice, once ignored, was suddenly headlines. Messi betrays Barca. Messi run from failure. His finished. They forgot the goals, forgot the nights he carried the club on his back, forgot the pain he endured in silence. He stayed, but his heart didn't. CristianoRonaldo had already walked away. From Manchester, from Madrid, from loyalty, because to him, legacy wasn't built by staying. It was built by winning. Anywhere, everywhere. But leaving Madrid came at a cost. Whispers followed him. He'll fail in Italy. His pass is prime. Serie A is too slow, too tactical. He heard them, and he answered. Goals, records, titles. But something was missing. The fire was there, but the war was gone. There was no Messi in Italy, no bright blue and red shadow pushing him harder. And Messi no longer had Ronaldo chasing him down La Liga's table. They were separated, but still compared. Every single day, every single second. Who had more Ballon d'Ors? Who had more UCLs? Who scored more with their weak foot? Who was more clutch? Who cried more? It was never ending. The rivalry had left the pitch and entered their homes. Ronaldo couldn't tweet without it being measured against Messi. Messi couldn't switch clubs without being accused of copying Ronaldo. Every move dissected, every word twisted, every emotion weaponized, because the media didn't want peace. They wanted fuel. 4 clicks, for division, for fire. And the fans? They followed. Online wars, death threats, fake stats, endless arguments that had nothing to do with football. But the worst battles weren't public. They were personal. Messi lost Diego, the man who cast a shadow over his entire career, the man he was always compared to. Even in death, he mourned in silence, in black armbands, in eyes that stopped glowing the same. Ronaldo lost his newborn son, and for once, the machine cracked. He posted a message. No emojis, no celebration, just heartbreak. And in that moment, the world stopped debating and just mourned. Even Messi sent support, because when pain is real, rivalry doesn't matter. Their stories were no longer about goals. They were about resilience. Resilience in grief, in loss, in betrayal, in relentless pressure. They weren't playing football anymore. They were surviving it. And yet, every time they stepped on the field, they smiled, they ran, they scored, because the pitch was the only place left where they could still breathe. 2 men, pushed by the world, pulled by expectation, crushed by the weight of history. And yet, they carried it for over 15 years, without breaks, without excuses, without mercy, because beyond the boots, beyond the jerseys, beyond the myths, were 2 boys still chasing that same dream. To be more, to mean more, to leave behind something that would never die. The clock was ticking. The roar of stadiums hadn't faded, but it had changed. The chants were softer, the gasps fewer, the questions louder. Is this the end? Can they still do it? Should they walk away now? Time had come knocking, not with warning, but with silence. Cristiano Ronaldo was back at Manchester United, a full circle, a dream return. Also, they said, but the club wasn't the same. The system broken, the ambition gone. He scored goals, big ones, game winners, last-minute headers. But the love? It wasn't there. Not the way it used to be. And when he spoke up, they turned on him. Media spun stories. Critics sharpened knives. Even fans questioned his motives. His arrogant. His finished. His hurting the club. They forgot the teenager who saved them once. They forgot the glory he gave them. They forgot he was still human. He left. Again. This time, not for Europe. Not for glory. But for a different kind of fire. Al Nassr. Saudi Arabia. A place the media mocked. A league they dismissed. But Ronaldo wasn't chasing their approval anymore. He was chasing peace. And proving that football doesn't belong to Europe alone. Messi, too, made his move. After a tearful goodbye, he walked away from Barcelona, the only home he ever knew. They said he was forced, that the club betrayed him. And maybe they did. Paris Saint-Germain, bright lights, big promises, but not his city. He played, he created, he delivered. But the magic? It flickered. French fans whistled him, booed him, as if greatness could be rented and returned. Even after winning the World Cup, even after silencing every critic who ever said, he doesn't do it for Argentina. The questions didn't stop, because in modern football, even gods need to go viral. And yet, in their lowest moments, they rose. Messi lifted the World Cup, a golden chapter he chased for decades, a title not just for himself, but for every Argentine who doubted him. He cried, he kissed the trophy, and for once, the world stood still and simply respected him. Ronaldo kept scoring, kept training, kept building an empire far from the elite's approval. He wasn't slowing down. He was evolving. The rivalry had changed. It wasn't about numbers anymore. It was about who they had become. Messi, the silent artist, now adored across oceans, lifting the one prize that haunted him for years. Ronaldo, the relentless warrior, now leading football into new lands, demanding respect from places the world ignored. They weren't fighting each other anymore. They were fighting time. They weren't chasing Ballon d'Ors. They were chasing peace. They weren't trying to be remembered. They already were. For the first time in nearly 2 decades, the world began to see them not just as rivals, but as survivors of pressure, of expectation, of constant noise. They smiled more, held their children closer, gave interviews that felt like goodbyes, even if they never said the words. Because deep down, they knew this wasn't the beginning anymore. It wasn't the peak. It was a turn, the slow descent, not into obscurity, but into immortality. They had nothing left to prove, and yet they kept playing, not for critics, not for contracts, not even for legacy, but because the ball still made them feel. Like those 2 kids from Rosario and Madeira, still dreaming, still running, still free. The whistles are quieter now. The jerseys have changed. The stage is smaller. But when they step onto the pitch, you still feel it. That electricity, that weight. Because Messi and Ronaldo aren't just footballers. They are the echoes of an era, the final embers of a time that may never come again. Look around. The world has moved on. New stars rise. Holland, Mbappe, Vinicius, Bellingham. They score. They shine. They trend. But there's a difference. The world doesn't stop when they play. It paused for Messi. It froze for Ronaldo. Because they weren't just players. They were events, moments in motion. Their legacy isn't built on just numbers, though the numbers are absurd. 800-plus goals, dozens of trophies, countless individual honors. But those are just footprints, left behind. Their real legacy lives in the emotion, in the child who mimicked Messi's dribble on a dusty street, in the boy who practiced Ronaldo's celebration after every school match, in the father who told his son, I watched them both. Because greatness isn't about what you do. It's about how many hearts you move while doing it. Messi taught us that you don't need to shout to be heard, that genius can be silent, and elegance can break defenses. He didn't chase cameras. He let his left foot do the speaking, and that foot told stories of balance, of grace, of impossible angles and improbable goals. And Ronaldo? He showed us the cost of obsession, the price of wanting to be the best, every single day. He wasn't born with it. He built it. Through pain, through ridicule, through work that most would quit. He taught us that greatness isn't gifted. It's earned by those willing to suffer for it. And through it all, they stood side by side, sometimes as enemies, sometimes as shadows, but always as mirrors. One wouldn't be complete without the other. Not in history, not in truth. Their rivalry made them legends, but their respect made them immortal. In the end, there was no winner, and there didn't need to be, because this was never about who was better. It was about how lucky we were to witness both, to see football so split in two. One part joy, one part fury, both beautiful, both unforgettable. Now they stand at the twilight, still adored, still dangerous, but no longer chasing. They've given everything, more than they had, more than we deserved. And soon they'll walk away, not with silence, not with tears, but with legacy, one built not just beyond defenders, but beyond goals. The stadiums will chant new names. The headlines will print new records. But in every touch of the ball, in every roar of the crowd, in every heartbeat of the game, you will still find them. Messi, Ronaldo, two names, two journeys, one story. And it's a story that will never end.